Hey, buddy. This is continuing my story of my adventures in Mombasa, Kenya. Um, I told you about the very unforgettable night that I had at the Sikh temple. I took the public bus. It was about maybe about an hour's ride down to the coast. And on the coast, they had a lot of very fancy resort hotels along the beach. One of them that was very close to where I got out was actually mostly for Germans. So there were a lot of Germans. And one thing I learned about Germans is that they are not shy about wearing little teeny tiny bathing suits when they are very overweight. So there were a lot of fat people walking around on the beach, speaking German to each other, who were staying at this hotel. And I walked down the road a little bit. It was a very small one lane country road under the palm trees. And there was a hostel. There was a little shack. So I stopped in and I introduced myself to this young American who said that he was finishing up the construction, the renovation of these buildings that he had bought, and he was going to make a hostel for people like me who couldn't afford the fancy European style hotels up the beach. And when I told him my situation, he said, "Sure, you can stay here. I'll give you a room. Just help me with some work around the hostel." And he said, there's some unusual things that you're not used to. For one thing, there's no electricity here. We don't have any electricity yet. And so he showed me in the common room in the main building, there was food covered with a screen net. It was like a basket that you lay over the food to keep the flies off of it. But there was no refrigeration. And there was a couple of tables. There was nobody else there now at that point. So he showed me across the little room where there was a series of about four or five rooms in this concrete building, all facing the road. And he said, "Yeah, you can just stay in here." So I said, "That's fine." And in a couple of hours, I wandered back over there and I found that the other guests who were staying there with me were in this common room. There were three other men staying in this hostel. And two of them were German tourists, maybe in their 40s or 50s. And the third one was a British, a very short British man with huge legs under his shorts. And when I was sitting there talking, introducing myself to the Germans, this British man wandered in his hiking boots, and he announced that he'd been marching all day long up and down the beach, this beautiful beach that they have outside Mombasa, and that he'd walked all the way for miles up and then miles back, and that's how he'd spent his day. And when I asked him, he said he was a coal miner. He spent all his life working in the mines in England. And so when he had a vacation time, he'd take off and go to some place with a beautiful beach so he could walk down the beach. And that's what he was doing. And so for the next 3 or 4 nights, I was staying with these three gentlemen, trading stories. Since there was no electricity and nothing else to do, we talked a lot. We told a lot of stories and we're talking about our countries and where we came from. And the next morning, one of the German men said, "There's a little boy that comes by here every morning on his bicycle, and he'll bring a few little groceries, just a little on the basket on the front of his bicycle, whatever he can fit in there, he'll bring by. And if you want something that he has, then you can buy it for a few shillings. And if you want something special, you can order it, and he'll bring it back the next day." So I said, "Boy, this is pretty rustic. This is a little different." I saw him and I said hello to the little boy. Bought, I don't remember what I bought, maybe some bread or something to munch on during the day. There wasn't anything really to eat there, and there were no other stores I could walk to. Um, so I wasn't eating very much while I was at this hostel. And then after that, my friend, who owned the hostel, sh took me outside and said, "Okay, here's what I want you to do for me is I want you to paint this water tank." There was a big metal water tank up on high stilts. And so that's what I did for the first couple of days to earn my room, to stay in the room. I was out in this very hot sun painting this water tank. And that was a hard job. That was a hard job. But I got through it and I didn't have anything else to do. And I was young and I was in pretty good shape. And then at night, at the end of the night, at the end of the day, this British guy would march back in from the beach, and his big boots were all covered with sand, and he was all sweaty and stinky, and he didn't like to talk very much. He didn't tell us much. I guess he didn't have much to talk about since all he'd seen was up and down the beach all day. So I mostly talked to the German guys. And I decided while I was sleeping that night that the next morning I would order my favorite fruit from this little boy, which is a mango. So when the little boy came up on his bicycle, we were all waiting there for him. This is like greeting this basket full of little groceries was our entertainment for the day. So we were all waiting for him, and I said I'd like a mango tomorrow. He said, "Okay, I'll bring you a mango." And so I went back and I spent the day painting the water tank and chatting with these German guys, and then saying hello to the British guy before he went back into his room and just fell on his bed, exhausted after a day of hiking. Um, and so it was a pretty nice day, and I just couldn't stop thinking about this mango I was going to have. I love mangoes, and I knew it was going to be a good one. So I spent all night waiting for the mango. The next morning, the three of us were out there waiting for the bike, and he rode up, and there it was. And he handed me this mango, and I gave him, I don't know, a couple of shillings. It's worth 20 or 30 cents for it. And I said, "Oh boy," and I was ready. I was ready for this. I had borrowed a sharp knife that I was gonna, that to cut the mango open and to eat it with. And so I took the knife and the mango down to the beach, and I sat down at the foot of these palm trees overlooking the beach, and I put the mango down, turned around to get my knife, and as I was picking up the knife, there was a little African boy that was standing there, started laughing. Ha 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 ha! I said, "What's he laughing at? I didn't do anything." Ah, ha! And I turned around with my knife, and there was no mango. The mango was gone. And the little boy, he was all excited. He pointed up at the palm tree, and there was a monkey sitting up in the top of the palm tree eating my mango. Oh my gosh, this is not the way I wanted this day to go. And he was just looking at me like, "Well, what are you looking at?" He dropped a couple of pieces of skin. That's the closest I got to having my mango that day. So you can imagine how I felt. Nothing to eat, no mango, just a day's work, a day ahead of painting this water tower. So what can I do? I did. That's what I did. And I went back and I decided, hey, if I can't even get a mango, so I stayed for another day or two on the beach and walked up the beach and looked at some of and watched all of these rich German tourists eating their big meals and wishing that I had a little something to eat. And and I was admiring my scar. I had had my appendix removed in Nairobi a couple of months before, so I had the most beautiful purple scar on my gut. And so I was looking at that and watching how that was changing colors, and that was about all I had to do all day. So after a day or two, I decided I'd had enough of this too, and it was a beautiful beach and Diani Beach on the coast of looking in near Mombasa. I hope you have a chance to go there someday. Maybe you can take your mom and dad. But for now, give them a big kiss for me. And I've got some more fantastic stories waiting for you. I've got on my storyteller shirt, so we'll find some more great things that happened to me in other parts of the world to talk about tomorrow. You take care and be good and stay happy. All right, buddy?